On January 11, 1943, a terse coded message departed from Lublin, in German-occupied Poland. It travelled across the Reich, destined for Berlin. The subject line was stark: Current status report Operation Reinhardt. What followed was a precise, meticulous accounting, a tally, 4 columns, each a numerical record, for 4 distinct locations. It enumerated arrivals and departures, over 1 million human beings documented as statistics, a ledger of death reduced to bureaucratic entries. It was a single, chilling document, one of the most damning pieces of evidence from the entire war. A quiet, administrative whisper, cataloguing an unspeakable fact. The Second World War brought with it an unprecedented level of systematic, state-sponsored violence. For Germany, under the National Socialist regime, this violence was not merely a byproduct of conflict. It was a core ideology, a program. Central to this program was the belief in racial purity and the elimination of those deemed undesirable. Among these, Jewish people were targeted for total annihilation. This policy, which evolved from persecution to expulsion to mass murder, became known as the final solution to the Jewish question. Its origins were deeply rooted in a virulent anti-Semitism that had long stewed within German society and was weaponized by the Nazi Party. Upon coming to power in 1933, Adolf Hitler and his party immediately began implementing discriminatory laws. Jewish citizens were stripped of rights, their property confiscated, their lives increasingly circumscribed. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 formalized this segregation, defining who was considered Jewish and excluding them from German life. With the outbreak of war in September 1939, and particularly with the invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, the scope of Nazi policy shifted dramatically. The initial intent to expel Jewish populations from German territories gave way to a policy of extermination. This was not a sudden, singular decision, but a brutal escalation, driven by ideology, wartime exigencies, and the growing indifference to human life fostered by total war. The Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads, were deployed behind the advancing German armies on the Eastern Front. Their mission was clear: to murder Jewish civilians, communist functionaries, and Roma peoples. They carried out mass shootings in towns and villages across Eastern Europe, often with the complicity of local collaborators. Hundreds of thousands were massacred in this manner, shot into pits or ravines. These killings, brutal and public, began the genocide. However, the leadership in Berlin soon recognized the logistical and psychological strain these mass shootings placed on the perpetrators. Such methods were deemed inefficient and psychologically damaging to the SS soldiers involved. A more orderly and discreet method was sought. This search led to the development of gassing vans and then to the construction of dedicated extermination camps. The Wannsee Conference, held on January 20, 1942, formalized the administrative coordination of the final solution. This was not where the decision to commit genocide was made, but rather where senior Nazi officials across various ministries gathered. The purpose was to streamline the implementation of the mass murder plan to ensure all branches of the German state understood their role in the logistical process. It was a meeting about organization and efficiency. The goal was clearly stated: the physical extinction of the Jews of Europe. Following Wannsee, the network of existing concentration camps was expanded, and new purpose-built extermination camps were constructed, primarily in occupied Poland. These camps were specifically designed for mass murder. They included Belzec, Sobibor and Treblinka, collectively known as the Action Reinhardt camps. A fourth, Majdanek, also played a significant role in the extermination process, though its primary function initially was as a prisoner of war and forced labour camp. Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest and most infamous, also rapidly expanded its killing capacity during this period. The Action Reinhardt camps were constructed with a singular, horrific purpose: the swift and systematic killing of Jewish people from across German-occupied Europe. Victims were transported by train, often in horrific conditions, from ghettos and transit camps to these remote locations. Upon arrival, they were immediately deceived, told they were being resettled or were to undergo disinfection. They were then herded into gas chambers and murdered, primarily using carbon monoxide gas from internal combustion engines. Belzec, Sobibor and Treblinka were designed for rapid processing and extermination, with minimal infrastructure for long-term detention. Their purpose was solely death. The administration of this vast machinery of murder required a complex bureaucratic structure. The SS, under Heinrich Himmler, was at its core. Different departments were tasked with different aspects. The Reich Security Main Office, RSHA, particularly Section 4B4, headed by Adolf Eichmann, handled the logistics of transportation. The WVHA, SS, Main Economic and Administrative Office, managed the exploitation of slave labour and the processing of victims' possessions. In occupied Poland, local SS and police leaders were given vast authority to implement the directives from Berlin. Among these, the SS and police leader in Lublin, Odilo Globoknik, was entrusted with the direct command of Action Reinhardt. It was within this specific organisational framework, this machinery of death, that the Hoefle telegram was generated. The Hoefle telegram, while bearing one name, was the product of a vast and interconnected criminal enterprise. Its existence reflects the collaboration of numerous individuals, each fulfilling a specific role within the Nazi hierarchy of extermination. At the apex of this hierarchy stood Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsführer SS. Himmler was arguably the most powerful figure in the Third Reich after Hitler himself. He was the architect and supreme commander of the SS, the Gestapo, and the entire Nazi concentration and extermination camp system. His fanatical racial ideology and unwavering loyalty to Hitler made him the perfect instrument for implementing the final solution. Himmler held the ultimate authority over all aspects of the genocide, issuing general directives and delegating responsibility down the chain of command. The establishment of the Action Reinhardt camps and their operation were directly under his purview, executed through his subordinates. His vision of a racially pure Germany, cleansed of its perceived enemies, drove the entire systematic program of mass murder. Reporting directly to Himmler in matters concerning the extermination program was Odilo Globoknik. An Austrian Nazi and fervent anti-Semite, Globoknik served as the SS and police leader in the Lublin district of occupied Poland. Lublin became the operational headquarters for Action Reinhardt, the code name for the systematic extermination of Jews in the general government. Globoknik was a brutal and ruthless administrator, utterly committed to the Nazi cause. He was personally responsible for overseeing the construction and operation of the three-corps Action Reinhardt extermination camps, Belzec, Sobibor and Treblinka. He reported directly to Himmler on the progress of the extermination effort, and was entrusted with vast resources and virtually unchecked power to carry out his mission. His department was responsible for the logistics, personnel, and daily operations of these killing centres, including the collection and processing of victims' possessions, which were then channeled back to the Reich. Working as Globoknik's chief of staff for Action Reinhardt was Hermann Hoefle. Hoefle was an Austrian SS officer with a background in administrative and police work. He was not a frontline soldier, but a bureaucrat of genocide. His role was crucial in managing the day-to-day operations and coordinating the various elements of Action Reinhardt. This included the transportation of victims, the allocation of personnel, and the compilation of statistical reports on the progress of the extermination. Hoefle was responsible for the efficient functioning of the killing centres, ensuring that trains arrived on schedule, that the gas chambers operated without interruption, and that the administrative records were meticulously kept. His position placed him at the heart of the operational execution of mass murder, translating Himmler's directives and Globoknik's orders into concrete, horrific action. The telegram that bears his name is a clear testament to his direct involvement in the administrative oversight of the Holocaust. The recipient of the telegram was Adolf Eichmann. His primary responsibility was the organisation and logistics of the deportation of Jews from across Europe to the extermination camps in the East. Eichmann was the transportation specialist of the Holocaust. He coordinated with various German ministries, railway authorities, and foreign governments to ensure the seamless flow of trains carrying victims to their deaths. While he did not directly command the extermination camps, his role was indispensable. Without the trains he organised, the camps could not have fulfilled their purpose. Eichmann's department was the central hub for tracking the overall progress of Jewish deportations and consequently their extermination. Information like that contained in the Hoefle telegram was vital for him to update his own figures and provide overall reports to his superiors, including Himmler. He was a master of bureaucracy, turning human beings into cargo and their destruction into a statistical problem to be solved with utmost efficiency. These men, each within their sphere of influence, formed the administrative backbone of the final solution. They were not madmen in the traditional sense, but committed functionaries driven by ideological conviction and a chilling dedication to their task. The Hoefle telegram emerges from this administrative network, a cold and factual internal communication that links these figures directly to the systematic mass murder unfolding in the East. The Hoefle telegram itself is a stark, unadorned document. It is not an order for murder, it is a report on murder. Dated January 11th, 1943, it was sent from Lublin to Adolf Eichmann's office in Berlin. Its content provides a snapshot of the extermination operations in progress under Action Reinhardt and at Majdanek. The telegram is relatively short, approximately 60 words, but its implications are vast. It begins with a standard header. Then, crucially, Betreff Standstatistik Action Reinhardt. That translates to Subject Current Status Report Operation Reinhardt. This immediately establishes its context as an internal administrative update concerning the ongoing genocide. The language is chillingly bureaucratic. The terms Zugänge and Abgänge mask the brutal reality. People did not simply depart from these camps. They were systematically murdered. The fact that arrivals and departures match perfectly for Majdanek, Sobibor and Treblinka for December 1942 underscores the immediate and total nature of the extermination process upon arrival. There was no real processing or detention for the majority of these individuals. They were brought only to die. It is important to understand what the Hoefle telegram does not cover. It does not include the millions murdered by the Einsatzgruppen in mass shootings across Eastern Europe, nor does it account for the vast numbers murdered in other camps, most notably Auschwitz-Birkenau. Auschwitz, while also an extermination camp, functioned differently. It combined a massive slave labour complex with an extermination centre, and its administrative records were kept separately, often in much greater detail, and in a different reporting chain. The Hoefle telegram specifically outlines the human cost of Action Reinhardt, Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka, and a portion of the deaths at Majdanek, under Odilo Globoknik's direct operational control. The very existence of such a document speaks volumes about the nature of the Nazi genocide. It was not a spontaneous outburst of violence, but a meticulously planned and executed state-sponsored program. The SS maintained extensive records, not out of any sense of moral accounting, but for bureaucratic efficiency and internal reporting. They viewed their victims as statistics, as units in a production process. The final solution was effectively an industrial undertaking, and like any industry, it generated internal reports and progress updates. The telegram's purpose was multifaceted. For Hoefle, it was a necessary administrative duty, providing his superiors with precise figures. For Eichmann, it offered crucial data to integrate into his broader statistical picture of the Jewish problem. These numbers would inform future deportation plans, resource allocation, and overall strategic decisions within the framework of genocide. The document confirms the perpetrators' own awareness of the monstrous scale of their crimes, recorded in their own language for their own internal use. It is a terrifying example of the banality of evil, where unimaginable atrocities are reduced to lines on a ledger, a chilling testament to the administrative machinery of death. The Hoefle telegram was not a document unearthed by a clandestine operation during the war. It did not require decryption by codebreakers. Instead, its discovery was part of the immense post-war effort by the Allied powers to seize and process the vast archives of the collapsed Third Reich. As German forces retreated, or as areas were liberated, countless documents were left behind or captured. These papers, ranging from high-level policy directives to mundane administrative notes, became critical evidence in understanding the full scope of Nazi crimes. Following Germany's unconditional surrender in May 1945, the victorious Allied powers initiated comprehensive investigations into war crimes. Teams of analysts, historians, and legal experts sifted through millions of captured German documents. These efforts formed the basis for the Nuremberg trials and subsequent prosecutions. The sheer volume of material meant that important documents could remain unnoticed, or their full significance not immediately grasped for some time. The Hoefle telegram was among these captured documents. It was found within a collection of papers that originated from the British intelligence services. Specifically, it was located among files pertaining to Action Reinhardt that had been intercepted or discovered. Its exact path into Allied hands is not definitively documented as a single dramatic event, but rather as part of the systematic collection of enemy intelligence and administrative records during and after the war. For a period, the telegram existed as just one item among thousands. Its true weight, its potential as undeniable evidence, was brought into sharper focus with the subsequent trials of Nazi war criminals. The document truly came to prominence much later, particularly in the context of the trial of Adolf Eichmann in Jerusalem in 1961. Eichmann, famously captured in Argentina by Israeli agents, was tried for his central role in the deportation and extermination of millions of Jews. During his trial, prosecutors sought to establish, beyond any doubt, the systematic nature and immense scale of the Holocaust, relying heavily on internal German documents. While the Hoefle telegram itself was not introduced as a primary piece of evidence during the Eichmann trial, its existence and context became widely known to historians and investigators around that time and later. It was part of the broader evidentiary base that confirmed the figures presented at the trial. The document itself was ultimately authenticated and widely publicized by West German prosecutor Dr. Georg Konrad Morgan, who investigated concentration camp crimes during the war, and later by historian Ernst Klee, who brought it to public attention in his 1980 work, The Good Old Days, The Holocaust as Seen by Its Perpetrators and Bystanders. Klee published the full text of the telegram, making it accessible to a wider scholarly and public audience. The deciphering of its implications was not a complex linguistic challenge, but rather a contextual one. German records often used euphemistic language to disguise the true nature of their activities. Terms like special treatment or resettlement were common. However, the consistent pairing of arrivals and departures, equaling the same numbers, especially in camps known to be solely for extermination, left no room for ambiguity. The context of Action Reinhardt, already known through survivor testimonies and other captured documents, solidified the grim interpretation. The telegram was understood for what it was, a perpetrator's own summary of mass murder. Its discovery and subsequent authentication provided a crucial, undeniable piece of contemporary evidence. It was not a post-war fabrication, nor was it based on prisoner testimonies that could be dismissed by detractors. It was an official SS communication, generated in real time by those directly involved in the genocide, quantifying their actions. This internal record, produced for their own administrative purposes, offered an irrefutable glimpse into the methodical and bureaucratic nature of the Nazi extermination program. It confirmed, through the perpetrators' own numbers, the sheer scale of the atrocity they were committing. The Hoefle telegram, a brief and seemingly innocuous administrative memo, cast a long and chilling shadow over historical understanding. Its impact was profound, particularly in the decades following the war, as the full magnitude of the Holocaust continued to be meticulously documented and understood. Firstly, the telegram provided irrefutable internal German documentation of the scale of the killings. Before its wider publication and analysis, historical estimates of victims often relied on survivor testimonies, demographic studies, and Allied intelligence reports. While these sources were robust, the Hoefle telegram offered something unique: a contemporary, official SS tally from the perpetrators themselves. It removed any lingering doubt about the systematic nature and the horrifying numbers associated with the Action Reinhardt camps and Majdanek. The figures, over 1.25 million dead in specific camps by the end of 1942, were not an Allied exaggeration or a victim's lament. They were the cold, hard numbers recorded by those who carried out the murders. This document became a powerful weapon against Holocaust denial. For decades, revisionist historians and anti-Semitic ideologues sought to minimize or outright deny the systematic extermination of Jews by the Nazis. They claimed that the numbers were inflated, that gas chambers did not exist, or that the deaths were due to disease and starvation, not intentional murder. The Hoefle telegram directly challenged these claims. Here was an official German document, created by an SS officer responsible for the extermination camps, providing precise counts of those departed, a euphemism unmistakably understood in context as murdered. It was perpetrator evidence of the highest order, confirming the deliberate and planned nature of the genocide precisely at the time it was occurring. The telegram also illuminated the bureaucratic machinery behind the Holocaust. It demonstrated that the final solution was not merely a series of isolated atrocities, but a coordinated administrative effort, managed with chilling efficiency. The fact that an SS officer like Hoefle was compiling monthly reports for an official like Eichmann, using precise figures, underscores the deeply institutionalized nature of the genocide. It was a state-sponsored program, meticulously documented and managed like any other large-scale government enterprise. This bureaucratic aspect, often referred to as the banality of evil by Hannah Arendt, was starkly evident in the telegram's dry statistical format. It showed how ordinary administrative practices could be harnessed for mass murder. Furthermore, the document helped to clarify the specific roles of different extermination camps. By listing Belzec, Sobibor, Treblinka and Majdanek, it underscored their primary function as killing centres. While some camps, like Auschwitz-Birkenau, combined extermination with forced labour, the Action Reinhardt camps were almost exclusively death factories. The Zugang, arrivals, and Abgang, departures for any given month often matched exactly, signifying immediate extermination upon arrival for the vast majority. This distinction was critical for understanding the different operational models within the broader extermination system. The Hoefle telegram also contributed to a deeper understanding of the chain of command and responsibility within the Nazi regime. It explicitly linked Hoefle, serving under Globotnik, to Eichmann's office in Berlin, illustrating the communication pathways and reporting structures that facilitated the genocide. It provided tangible evidence of the flow of information that connected the operational killing centres in the East with the central planning and logistical apparatus in the Reich capital. This connection was vital for legal proceedings against war criminals, demonstrating direct involvement and shared responsibility. The Hoefle telegram endures as a relic of a precise bureaucratic evil. It is merely a piece of paper, black type on aged white fibre. Yet within its few lines and sterile columns, a profound horror is contained. It does not rage or weep. It simply states. It quantifies. It is a testament to the chilling human capacity for organisation and detachment, even in the face of unspeakable crimes. This document forces a contemplation not only of the scale of the atrocity, but also of the mindset that produced it. It speaks to a system where human lives became data points, where mass murder was reduced to an administrative task, and where the meticulous tracking of death was deemed a necessary part of efficient management. The telegram is a stark reminder that genocide is not always born of chaotic rage. Often, it emerges from methodical planning, from the dehumanization embedded in official language, and from the quiet, diligent work of countless functionaries. It stands as a permanent record, not of the victim's suffering, but of the perpetrator's actions. It is a mirror reflecting the administrative logic of destruction, a chilling example of how the abstract processes of a state can be weaponized against its own people, or against those deemed outsiders. The numbers, cold and absolute, demand silent acknowledgement. They are not merely figures in a historical text. They represent the irreducible truth of mass murder, documented by those who committed it. The telegram remains a quiet, definitive statement from the past, challenging all who encounter it to confront the darkest aspects of governmental power and human indifference. And for a long time, no one spoke of it again.